I'm Manny.
I'm Noah.
Mrs. Devon.
And this is No Such Thing, the show where we answer our dumb questions and yours by actually doing the research. Today, we're talking about Letterboxd and how it's changed the ways we watch movies, possibly for the worse.
The part that freaks people out is that
maybe it's for people who are like staring at TikTok or something.
My God, everyone is so hot in this. Very true.
That creeps me out.
There's no such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing.
All right, so we all love movies. We agree?
That's right, yeah.
Yes, accurate.
And Letterboxd has many great uses, but my concern is that turning movie watching into social media data logging might hinder our engagement with the movies themselves. So, on this episode, I want to dig into how we use Letterboxd and try to find out what, if any, impact this has on our movie watching experience. Do we like movies more or less by committing to this cataloging and rating system? But first, let's back up. In case you have no idea what we're talking about, Letterboxd is a social media app for logging movies. It was started by a couple web designers in New Zealand back in 2011, but it saw a massive boost in popularity during COVID, going from about 1.8 million users in March 2020 to roughly 13 million today. Over 1 billion movies have been logged on the app. Users skew younger, the largest age group on the app being 18 to 24, followed by the coveted 25 to 35 set, of which we're proud members. Still, in 2023, when a majority stake was sold to a Canadian company called Tiny, Letterboxd was valued at over $50 million. The reputation Letterboxd carries is it skews a little bit more indie or art house versus something that's kind of more broad like IMDb. Our former colleague Graham was the inspiration for this episode because his ratings are
Insane.
They kind of he leans pretty heavily on like the 5-star rating versus something a little more modest.
Yes, I love movies. I love to watch them. I'm happy when I'm watching them. Sometimes, yes, they're disappointing, but thankfully, for the most part, the movies that I choose to watch usually make me very happy, and I'm sorry if that offends people. But thank you so much for having me, and good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. Thank you, Graham. Yeah, thank you, Graham. So to start off, how do you guys each use Letterboxd?
I have some sympathy for Graham because I also have a rating system that people think is crazy. I'm pretty much grading the movie on like how well it was made, like the production quality of it, and also screenplay, plot, all that stuff. But then it does mean that like a movie I didn't like that much will get a high rating because I thought that like, they had a vision.
So you're not rating on your personal enjoyment as much as the technical side.
Yeah, like I can acknowledge that a movie was good without liking it, without having to like it.
But that's what your rating system is based on.
Yeah, because then the part that freaks people out is that that means some of my favorite movies end up being like 2-star, 3-star movies.
Give us an example.
One of my favorite movies ever is the second Rush Hour movie, Rush Hour 2.
Sure.
I don't even know why the hell I'm even here. I ain't even Chinese.
I think it's hilarious. It's got good action sequences. But you want me to grade the screenplay on that one? It's like not good. It's like so I'm like, all right, as a movie, this movie's whatever. It's fine. It's a 2 or 3-star. But
so on your Letterboxd, you're giving your favorite movie a 2 or 3 stars.
In this instance, it would probably be like a 3-star movie. 2.5, 3 stars. It's not a 5-star like one of the best movies ever produced.
Okay, so I have the opposite rating system, which is this is my Letterboxd. If we're just rating the quality of the movie, that's what you go read the New York Times or some shit. I am not rating the movie based on how beautiful it is or what the sound mix is.
Or only insofar as it connects with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's movies that do all that stuff really well that I do not find entertaining, and I actually think those movies are worse.
Yeah.
Than something that has tons of flaws or like that plot line doesn't really make sense or whatever, but like, I don't know, connects emotionally. For me, my rating system is based on how much did I enjoy this movie. Yeah. But there's two extremes to that too, right? I gave Trap 5 stars. I had a really good time.
This whole concert is a trap. They're watching all the exits, checking everyone that leaves. There's no way to get out of here.
It is not a 5-star movie. There are a lot of issues with that movie. I also saw Cuckoo. It was a horrible movie, and I was annoyed in not having a good time. Right. So that got like 1.5. You can have a bad movie like the Medea movies. I'm giving those 5s. That is the most fun hour 20 minutes I've had, in my life.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff that is just really bad that you're like, oh my God, when is this going to be finished? At the end of the year, I may have 4 or 5 movies at the top level that I've given 5s to. Mm-hmm. Most of the movies I see are not getting 5s. But I also think most of the movies that I'm seeing are just not great.
I think when I look at ratings, maybe this is because I'm a good citizen, I feel like my rating system is in service of other people, perhaps.
What do you
So
mean?
your review, your 5-star review of Trap does not help me at all. But that's okay. I don't think it needs to do that. But that's what I try to do with my ratings. But I'm not a critic. I know.
That's about to go off.
Let me read my rating. Let me
Yeah.
read my rating. Because if you see me give Trap 5 stars, you got to click in and read what I wrote.
Yeah. But I know.
So what did you write for this?
My first line is...
And there's a heart on this one.
Is a heart, yeah.
Do you do hearts?
I don't do hearts. I don't know what they are, really.
Hearts will actually be helpful for you.
Yeah.
I wrote, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. No notes.
Mm-hmm.
Then I talk about specifics from the movie that don't actually make sense. But yeah, it's very dumb.
My system is I don't put a number rating on things. I'll just heart something. There's no point in that. I keep a watch list, which helps me if I just want to throw a movie on. That's mainly how I use it. I don't look at other people's things so much, except for like what pops up when I open it. If I see Devin's reviewed something, or if after I've seen something, I'm curious, like, oh, I wonder, if my friends have seen this or what they think, or
I'll do
that sort of thing. Aside from when I'm just curious, like what the worst reviews of something are, I'm not reading other random people's reviews really. So yeah, I'll throw a heart on something if I like, and then otherwise if I didn't love it, then there's no heart, and that's all.
Here's a fun experiment. Because many of the movies we log on Letterboxd, the 3 of us have seen together.
Yeah.
I'm seeing The Killer here.
If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. I don't give a
What are your guys' reviews or rankings of The Killer? I think we all came out thinking pretty much the same thing. So it'd be interesting to see how the reviews vary.
I'm pretty sure that was a no heart for me.
Damn.
Because my immediate reaction was low, but certain friends had such positive reactions, and then afterwards, I haven't rewatched it, but I then softened on it in my mind at least.
Yeah.
I gave it a higher review than I remember. I gave it 3 stars.
Okay.
One issue I had was just the viewing experience of seeing this movie. We saw it in
The Paris Theater.
horrible theater.
Everyone's big ass head is in the way.
It's like, I didn't even know this was still a thing. You could go to a movie theater and have to be worried about the person sitting in front of you because you can't see. That's to say, I gave it a higher rating because I was like, part of the reason why I was frustrated by this movie is just the way I was watching it. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Probably not something I'm going to watch again or even really think about.
Our reviews weren't that far off. You had 3, I had 2.5. And my review was that it was really well made and underscores the value of simplicity. But it didn't leave much of an emotional impression.
Yeah.
The first 20 minutes or so would have been an incredible short film.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair enough. With these things in mind, do you think it changes how you watch movies, knowing you're going to put a number or a star rating on it?
Yeah, I think Letterboxd has become such a staple in social media that, like, when I go into a movie, maybe subconsciously I am thinking about what I would say in a Letterboxd review. I think that's been a change in the past couple of years, especially when I was watching Challengers. All the Challengers reviews, and I was like, okay, what am I going to say when I get done with this movie?
Yeah, it's like reacting to the hype.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
I definitely think about it. I think I use it as a gauge for how much I'm liking the movie, especially when I don't like a movie. I feel like I think about it more. I'm like, oh, this is like...
And like during the movie.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of part of what inspired me to stop doing the stars, because it was like, why am I thinking about this at all?
Yeah.
Well, it only happens in movies where they're
that's
not
true.
that good because otherwise you're just engrossed in the movie. But it's usually when I'm like, okay, this is going from a 2 to 1.5. We're going to lose another star if it keeps going on for another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And especially like these last couple of bad movies I've seen, I've like actively been like, all right, what star rating are we at, and what did we just lose based on how bad that scene was?
Yeah, it's like a constant meter.
Yes. Or like sometimes I'm like, oh, you know what? That was actually pretty interesting.
Tack one
We had 2.5 now.
Yeah.
I don't love that I do that, but it only happens in movies where I'm not fully in the movie.
Yeah, even if you're thinking about it during it, do you think it helps you engage with the work knowing that you're going to do that? Versus, okay, you're not going to rate anything, you're not going to do anything. Yeah. Are you actually then just coming to terms on it on its own? Because I think part of what I don't like is you end up automatically then you're doing a comparison system where it's like, oh, well, that's a 5-star, so I guess this has to be a 5-star.
Yeah.
Or then if not, and you don't care, then it just looks ridiculous sometimes because it's like, well, why is that 5 and this is 3, even though this is great?
It's not consistent.
And then I'm just thinking about numbers and I'm turning a piece of art into data, basically. Instead of just like, oh, like this was very evocative of some feeling for me as an actual thing. And it's like, why does it make me feel that way? X, Y, Z, whatever. That's why to me, it's like thinking and talking about it. That's where the review part, writing, can help put that into words and even just like, okay, whoever you saw the movie with, talking with them at a bar afterwards.
Yes.
That's what I love. When you can have the fun where we're just picking it apart and the plot holes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And maybe my friend or someone has some idea and so I didn't think about that, but I actually agree. Or
I took that away from it. Or did you notice this thing?
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of more helpful for actually like engaging than like, well, it's 3, which is so reductive. But you can easily do that and then deduce the number afterwards. And I don't think it necessarily has to degrade the piece, but I think ultimately turning everything into a ranking or a list is pretty harmful. All right, so next I want to talk to a researcher about how movie reviews and ratings might impact our experience of a movie. And then I want to talk to a movie critic about how they approach writing reviews, assigning ratings, and how they feel about Letterboxd. And for me, I want to start assigning some star ratings to movies I've watched.
Finally.
Writing some reviews and seeing how I feel about it.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, wish me luck.
No such thing.
So I talked to a researcher from the Netherlands. His name is Ruud Jacobs. His master's thesis from 2012 is titled Everybody's a Critic, Influenceability of Motion Picture Evaluations from Expert and Consumer Reviews. Of course, this was a bit before Letterboxd became so prominent, but his paper looks at a few of the things that we were talking about as far as just how reviews and ratings can impact your experience. Here's how he explains it.
So the paper was from quite a long time ago. It was my master thesis back in the day, actually, and it's since been published. The paper was about trying to understand if movie reviews create a more or less interest in people to actually see those movies, and also to change whether or not people are enjoying the movies as they're seeing them. So I was trying to see if you read a movie review beforehand and then you watch the movie, if you have a worse or better time because of it. And that was the main goal.
So the experiment went like this. 5 groups of people were assigned to read either a professional positive review, a professional negative review, a consumer positive review, or a consumer negative review. And in this case, a consumer review is the equivalent to a Letterboxd review. It's written by a normal person, not a professional critic or something. Or they were given no review at all. They were just given some very basic information about the film without any evaluative statements.
And we designed those reviews based on a short content analysis of reviews that we found online, both on the consumer side and on the professional critic side. So these were, they took elements from reviews of that movie and they were kind of mashed together in a way that fit our manipulation, so that they are identical except for the evaluation, and they're identical except for the tone, professional or consumer.
So they were watching this short Spike Jonze film, I'm Here.
Great movie.
What do you mean we can't dream?
Of course you can. You just make it up.
He actually says like it's kind of an issue because the movie's just good, so it kind of skews the results almost. Like they need to find something maybe more middle of the road. But yeah.
Yeah, that was a college classic.
Staple, yeah. So that's how they did the experiment, and these are the results they found.
So the only effect that we found was of a negative consumer review. Those were the ones where the grade went down from what we found in the control condition to, I think, 1 point out of 10 lower or something, or 0.7 points out of 10 lower. And that was mostly because of the emotional engagement that people had with the movie after reading the review. because if they read a negative emotional review, they distanced themselves from the movie. They did not allow themselves to be engaged in the movie, and they were quite good at seeing which of the reviews were kind of emotional and which weren't, and they were also pretty good at guessing what the grade was that the reviewer would have given the movie based on just the narrative review without the actual grade.
So there's pretty clear evidence that reading a review paints what your experience with the movie is going to be if you read it beforehand.
And as you heard, he says these negative, more emotional reviews, which are going to skew towards the consumer side, so Letterboxd and other things, are going to have more impact than a more distant sort of straight writing style from a professional who's not going to probably try to engage you on that intense level as like, this sucks, you're wasting your time and money. Like a newspaper review probably isn't going to talk about like the money you're spending to see a movie or something.
You know, when he's talking about their basically reading a negative review makes it so that you go into the movie not like already not invested, right?
Yeah, like standoffish almost.
Exactly. Like you already create a distance, which rings true to me, right? Like there are movies that if you hear about ahead of time being particularly bad, you go in with the let me see what this dumbass movie is going to be, and you don't give it a chance to like be sucked in.
Yeah.
A recent example is like I heard how people thought Megalopolis was bad, and then I went to go see it and I was like, yeah, that was bad.
It's funny because for me I feel like it goes both ways, where in some level I hear something's trash and then I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. Almost a contrarian thing. So like Megalopolis and Joker 2 are two both movies that were totally disparaged by critics and normal people.
The mainstream media.
I was like, Francis Ford Coppola's a legend. He can't be totally worthless.
And you think 1 year of medical school entitles you to plow through the riches of my Emersonian mind?
And then Joker, not a movie I was that interested in, but I saw and also did terribly box office wise and critically. And I was like, well, this isn't as horrible as you would think, maybe. He did mention that reading reviews afterwards can also impact your opinion, even if you don't think so. So this is about something called the third person effect.
One of the things that I see is that people who read reviews after watching a movie, they tend to think that those reviews do not change what they thought of the movie. So they feel like other people might be affected by reading these reviews, but not they themselves. This is called the third person effect. It's very broadly found when you're looking at advertising research, that kind of stuff. But I think it's also there a lot for reviews. Many people in my friend group as well, we had long discussions about whether or not people are impacted by reviews. And they say, okay, maybe the grade, maybe the rating is what does it for me. But I think it's actually, even if you're reading a review before or after, that you change the way you think about a movie if the review is compelling or if the review has good arguments. But we are very bad at admitting for ourselves when that is happening. And we tend to say, oh, it's always been like that. I actually always hated that movie, even though you came out of it thinking, no, it's a really good movie, actually.
Certainly my feelings on movies have changed after reading a review or talking to people.
Oh, for sure.
Have you had the opposite happen, do you think? You come out of a movie thinking you really like it, and then someone's like, oh, this sucked. And then you're like, oh, yeah, it wasn't actually that good.
Yeah, because I'll be like, I won't fully flip my opinion, but I'll be like, yeah, I could see how some people would think that's dumb. It's also subjective.
Yeah, of course.
But definitely, it feels like your peers can influence how you feel about something.
Yeah.
Which is why I always write my Letterboxd review first before I look at other people's reviews.
Oh. Interesting.
You want a peer review, yeah.
I read reviews before I write mine. But like, I don't think I've ever changed my mind. Like, I'll go into it knowing what I want to say, but I'm curious.
We need to run a study on Manny's reviews. So I also talked to a movie critic as I was myself planning on writing some ratings and reviews. So I talked to Tasha Robinson. She's written and edited at a bunch of outlets. Currently, she's the entertainment editor at Polygon. She and some other critics have a great movie podcast called The Next Picture Show. I asked as far as her approach to star ratings. Here's what she had to say about that.
The rubric that I've always used and tried to get other people to use is, what was this movie doing? Does it do it well, and is it worth doing? And, you know, if what the movie was trying to do was sell toys and it sells the toys pretty well, that's probably a 2.5 star review. If all the movie's trying to do is sell toys and it does it badly, then we're probably looking at like a star. If the movie makes you feel not only that you've wasted your time, but then everybody who touched it in any way is wasting their time, then you can go lower than that. But that kind of, well, I added 0.5 star for this and subtracted 0.5 star for this, that creeps me out. That just sounds like the kind of person that walks into a restaurant and puts $10 in ones on the table and looks at the waitress and says, every time you make a mistake, I'm taking $1 off your tip. You get whatever's left over at the end of the night.
Tasha mentioned a similar issue to me as far as once you're reducing movies to a number grade, you kind of end up with some weird, unfair comparisons that can kind of paint you in a corner.
I certainly think a lot in terms of, well, if I give this 3 stars, what are people immediately going to pull up from my past that I gave 2.5 stars to and say, you think this is better than that? If somebody made me sit down in a locked room with every movie rating that I've ever made and told me to reorder the rankings until I found they were perfect, I'd probably be in there for 10 years and wouldn't come out any happier than I am right now.
I have definitely had the issue where I've rated something after watching it immediately. And then a couple days later, look at my Letterboxd and look at like the last movies that I've watched. And I'm like, this movie was definitely better than this movie.
Yeah.
How do they have the same rating, or how is this higher? I hate to admit it, but I have changed ratings.
You've edited them, yeah.
Yes.
Wow, retroactively.
It's not like I go back
like
6
years.
months later. It has to be within the same week for me.
Yeah.
After that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not like changing the older rating. I'm adjusting the new one.
I think a pro for consumer or Letterboxd reviews is you're not in this promotional bind. Even if you as a professional critic don't want to be, it's like you don't want to be punished, quote unquote, by studios or whoever who are giving you access to previews or other things. Like there's obviously like a political element to how a major website or publisher reviews things.
Yeah. But I think there is also just the weight to studio pressure aside. Like there's a weight to writing something. At the end of the day, this is all art. And if you're writing a review that could actively stop people from experiencing this piece of, like she says, piece of art for yourself, there's a lot of weight to that. And there are obviously movies that we all have seen that are just like, this is just despicable from beginning to end. Like everyone involved should be ashamed. But I think a lot of people are putting in a good faith effort to make something good, and a lot of times it just doesn't work out. So it's like dunking on a movie could really have a negative effect on something in a way that like us writing about it doesn't.
So after taking in all this research and talking to a professional critic, I wanted to kind of do some reflection on the movies I've seen recently.
I work without caring what happens to either of us. So go back to the club, bear it all, and stalk the kind of people that you enjoy.
Megalopolis, I found, is probably the movie I've wrestled with the most as far as thinking about it, partly because of all the lore. I know he's been working on this in different forms since the 80s. I really wanted to love it, but for a movie that's about grand ideas, I found it didn't really have many great ones to back it up with. And there's some really cool expressionistic stuff and some cool visuals, but a lot of it is pretty hideous to me. I hope to revisit it in a few years and maybe I'll be able to get something more out of it, but right now I've got to give it, I think, a 1.5.
Damn.
Yep.
You said a lot of it is pretty hideous to me. That's crazy.
I mean, some of it was like green screen in the basement quality, like really.
I haven't seen him. How's my boy Adam?
He's great. I mean, the performances are great. Everyone's doing what they're asked to do.
But it just
doesn't come together to me.
Yeah.
And then when you add in, he's been working on it for 50 years. It's like,
this is
your masterpiece.
This is
You know what I mean?
On that time?
And like then everyone throws out, oh, it's $120 million. It's like it doesn't
look rich.
Look like that.
Yeah, let's hear Joker 2 because that was one that a lot of people hated.
So this is for Joker Folie à Deux.
For once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore.
I'm not a big superhero guy. I thought the first Joker movie was totally fine. This one I was actually surprised based on maybe all the bad reactions. I thought it was actually pretty thoroughly entertaining and interesting.
I heard it was boring.
A lot of it is rehashing the first movie in a courtroom sort of thing.
Okay.
And then I think they underused Lady Gaga, who I think is a great actor, obviously a great singer. They don't do as much of the musical stuff as I expected, honestly, and I wish they leaned in even further.
Like, if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah, instead it felt like 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. And
Yeah.
they do some bold choice as far as the arc of Joker and what the Joker means to society. Not gonna be one I revisit, but I mean, I kind of walked out of it like, oh, that was actually pretty fun. I think I'd give it 3 stars.
Wow, that's up there.
Okay.
Considering the rest of the
Another
movie.
star and a half.
So is that
Over
choice
Megalopolis.
as good as Megalopolis? I don't really know if I can say that, but for now.
But you were
that's what it
entertained.
is. I was entertained.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, then it does end up, you put a number on it that you, because they're so limited, there's 5 options.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to start thinking about whether you did think it was twice as good as Megalopolis.
And I don't.
All right, let's do one I've seen. Let's do Anora.
I am telling you, you do not know this guy.
Anora, again, I was thoroughly engaged throughout. It does a great job of it moves really fast in the beginning, and then it kind of traps you in one location for a long time and then flips some things on you. I thought the performances were great. There's some good actors who I've never seen before and things, so that was fun. And it has that good kind of intensity. So I was kept on my toes in that way, and I liked it, and I thought it had a very strong, interesting ending that I wasn't necessarily expecting, even though looking back, it's obvious some of the things that happen. But not in a bad way, in a, to me, satisfying way. That said, I'm not dying to watch it again, or I'm not really mulling over it so much in my head. I guess for that reason, I'll give it a 3 as well.
Damn. A 3.
Now this is where the rating system gets interesting.
Yeah, because is that
Joker 2 and Anora have the same rating in the Noah review system.
I give it 4.5.
4.5.
Wow.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good.
I think to me, if I had rated it right when I walked out, it would have been higher. And I think just in the 2 weeks, I'm just not that drawn back to it in that way.
Yeah.
If I watched it again, I don't know if I would gain so much more necessarily. Which doesn't mean it's bad even. It's a movie, which is fine. Most movies are. You know? So I mean, after doing all this and writing these reviews and doing the ratings, I still feel like I end up painting myself into a corner of making strange comparisons, but at the same time, it's kind of like, who cares is kind of my feeling. It is kind of objectively fun to just say, like, fuck it, that's a 1.5. And it does garner a much more intense reaction than kind of thoughtfully talking through my feelings on a movie. So for that reason, I am maybe leaning towards opening it up and let a few reviews and ratings spray.
Wow.
Do I think it's, for the better of my movie going? Probably not, but it's fine. And I think, you kind of need to let things go sometimes and just let it rock.
Yeah, just let it rock. And the other thing is, like, I'm glad to hear this because there is a very tiny community of us who have been wanting to see Noah reviews. Like, we get them in real life, and we want them to see them on the app more often. So I don't know. I'm happy to hear this.
I won't be starving you all anymore. So there's that, and then we had a few reviews in this. If you want to hear a few more reviews, we talk about The Substance and Manny's controversial Challengers review and Gladiator 2. We're going to throw those up on our Substack. You already know, but go to www.nosuchthing.show to subscribe, and you can check that out. No Such Thing is produced by Manny Fidel, Noah Friedman, and Devin Joseph. Theme song is by Manny, and this song is by 9 Inch Nails. Thank you to our guests, Ruud Jacobs and Tasha Robinson.